Hey there, folks. This is Mr. McGill, and today we are dividing a decimal number by a decimal divisor. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. First thing we're going to do is actually a little review. We're going to look at this problem, 36 and 41 hundredths divided by 5. All right, to do this kind of problem, what do we need to do as we divide? Right, we're going to consider the number like a whole number. So we're going to divide first. Then we're going to figure out how many would be in each group and multiply to see how much that is. And then subtract it to see what's left to divide. And then we'll check to make sure we can or can't divide again. Then when we're all done, that's when we're going to consider the decimal. Okay? So let's go ahead and jump into it. So we're going to go place by place here. So 5 divides 3. No, it doesn't. So 3, we're considering that to be 3,000s. 3,000. So we have to break them apart into hundreds. So 36 hundreds. Okay, so imagine that, $3,600 bills. And you're going to give them to 5 people. How many could each person get? Here's where you might need your multiplication table. Also, before I continue, make sure you have a pencil and some notebook paper to take notes as you go through the problems with me, okay? Or to practice the problems with me. That's always how we're going to learn best, by actually doing, not just watching and listening. Okay, so we were trying to divide up 36 hundreds. What times 5, or how many could we put in each group of 5? So 7 times 5 is 35, so I think that would be best. So we'll try that. So that's 7 hundreds. In each group, that would be 3,500, okay, or 3,500. And then let's see what we're left with. 141. 141. So now we've divided up the hundreds. Can we divide up the tens, 14 tens, into 5 equal groups? Yes, we can. So we're going to go ahead and do that. How many would be in each group? Okay, and you can pause the video as you go if you want to try to figure this out and you need more time. Okay, yeah, 2. So 2 or 20. So if you have 2 tens, that's 20. 20 times 5 is 100. If I did 3 times 5 is 15. That would be too much. So we're going to subtract, and we are left with 41. Interesting. Okay, think you can maybe see where this is going. Now we're going to divide 41 by 5. 41 ones. Let's see. What times 5 is 41? Well, if I put 8 in each group, that would be 8 times 5 is 40. So there you go. You have 40 now, and we subtract, and we're left with 1 here. Okay, so do we have a remainder of 1, or would we keep dividing? When we divide a decimal number, we always continue to divide, so we are not going to have a remainder in this case. So that means what I'm going to do is add a 0. Remember, if I add a 0 here, okay, if I add a 0 here, did I change any of the place values to the left of the 0? No, it's still $36.41, or 36 and 41 hundredths, or 410 thousandths now. It doesn't change the value of any of the digits. So we can add a 0 on and keep dividing into smaller pieces. So I'm going to add zeros all the way up and all the way down my work. Now I'm going to try to divide 10. All right. 10 divided by 5. Can I do that? Yes. So I'm going to be able to keep going up to divide. So how many times, or how many can I put in each group of 5? I can put 2. 2 times 5 is 10. So now I'm left with 0. Now I can't keep dividing as I go through the process. So what's left to do? Two things. Right, we're going to add up all the partial quotients here. This is kind of an expanded notation method or a place-by-place or partial quotients, whatever you want to call it. But we're going to add up all these amounts, and it's 7,000. Well, actually, we're not going to use a comma there, and there's a reason. We'll get to it. 282, because the next step is to actually consider the decimal. Remember, the last step, if I go down here, you can see we're going to consider the decimal last. So I go back up, and I think about this number. This number is not 36,410. It's actually 36 and 410 thousandths. So how many decimal place values are there? There's 1, 2, 3. That means this number here is 1,000 times smaller. So if the decimal was here in a whole number, we would shift the digits this way. So it would be 1, 2, 3. This is where the decimal goes in this number. 7 and 282 thousandths. All right. So the digits move to the right and the decimal moves to the left here for our final answer. Okay, that was a lot of work. So that's review. That shouldn't have taken you too long. Now let's move on to the next one. Okay, the next one is a whole number divided by a decimal number. Now, what do we do in this problem to start? Okay, yeah, in this one, you're going to consider the decimal first, okay? Because we want to try to divide by a whole number. It's just conceptually, it's a little bit easier to think that way. So that's what we're going to do. Then we will divide up the groups. We'll multiply to see how many that was that we divided up. We'll subtract to see what's left. And then we'll check to see if we can keep dividing. All right. So in this kind of problem, you divide after you've considered the decimal. So when we do this, we're going to multiply the 0.6 or 6/10 by 10 to shift it one place. I only need to shift it one place to make it a whole number. So that means in every place value in our place value system in base 10 is 10 times greater. So I need a multiple of 10. It's kind of like making an equivalent fraction, what we're going to do here, because we also then need to shift 534 one place value bigger as well. So the 6 or 6/10 becomes 6, and the 534 becomes 5,340. So it's the same concept as changing 1/2 to 4/8, or let's say 48, 80ths. So to do that, I would have to just multiply by a large multiple. In this case, it would be 40, and I have to do the same to the bottom. Remember, fractions are division. So this problem is kind of like a fraction, all right? So to make that equivalent fraction, I'm just shifting both numbers or multiplying both numbers by 10. All right, now I can divide, and it's pretty simple. 6 doesn't divide 5 thousandths, okay? But it does divide 53 hundredths. So we're going to continue on with that. And that is, well, how many could we put in each group? Yeah, 8. 9 almost does it perfectly, but 8 will work. 9 times 6 is what? Okay, so what's 8 times 6? It's 6 less than 54, because that's what 9 times 6 is. So it is 48. All right, 48. And remember, these are hundreds. We're dividing up hundreds. Okay? We did that because 5 thousandths wouldn't work, so now we're dividing up hundreds. So our partial quotient goes right above the 3 for the hundreds place, and then we subtract. Okay, what are you left with? All right. All right, so we have 540 left over because we had to ungroup the 5, made that a 13, minus 8, or subtract 8, and we're left with 540. Now, can we keep dividing? Yes, we can. So 6 divides 540 how many times? Not the hundreds, but the tens, yes. 54 tens. We just talked about this. How many could we put in each group? Right, 9. 9 tens. This is the tens place. So 90. 90 in 6 groups would make a total of 540. Okay? So now, after I multiply those, I subtract, and we're left with 0. All right, so that's how to divide by a whole number by a decimal number. And don't forget to add up the partial quotients here, so you have 890 total. Okay? And we've already considered the decimal, so we don't need to do that. So this makes sense, because if you had $534 and you made groups of 6 dimes, that would be a lot of groups. In this case, 890 different groups of 60 cents. Okay? So let's move on to the next one. Here's the skill for today: dividing a decimal number by a decimal divisor. So what would we do in this case? What would our steps be? Thinking about our steps in the past, we saw 2 different ways of dividing. Now we are going to keep the steps the same in that we're going to divide, we're going to multiply our shared groups to see how much we divided. We're going to subtract and check to see what's left. But what would make sense here as far as like thinking about the decimal? Do we want to divide by a decimal? It's always easier to think of it as a whole number. So yeah, we're going to consider the decimal first. And sometimes if there's a decimal left in the dividend, you're going to consider it last as well. Okay? How much smaller it really is. So let's go through the steps here. All right, so first I would think of this number and multiply it by 10 to shift it. Okay? So that shifts it this way, or the digits go left, 1 place value. And I have to do the same to the number that's being divided. So don't forget that. All right, now I go through the steps for dividing. How many could I put in each group of 8 if I have 24 of something, $24? Think about it. Use that times table if you need to. Yeah, 3. 3 times 8 is 24. So that's our answer. And when I find out how much I've divided up exactly 24 minus 24. So that's 0 left. So now I'm done. I don't have any decimals. I don't have a decimal left in the dividend. So I'm done. The answer is 3. So $2.40 divided up into 80-cent groups would be, you could make 3 groups. That makes sense. Okay. So the answer is reasonable. So let's try another one here. Okay. Let's try another one. Okay. So now I have 64 hundredths. Okay. And I'm dividing it by 8 tenths. What do you do first? What's your first step, if you remember? Right. You're going to consider the decimal first. Then you'll divide it up. Then you'll see how much you've divided up by multiplying the amount in groups. And then you'll subtract to see what's left. And you'll check to see if you can keep dividing. And the last thing is to consider the decimal if there is one still in the dividend. So I'm going to let you go through this one and try it. And then you can check back with the answer that I provide. Okay? So pause the video and try this one on your own. Boom. There you go. All right. So the answer is 8 tenths. So if I take 64 hundredths and 8 tenths, and I divide 64 hundredths by 8 tenths, I'm going to first shift the 8 one place value, and then shift my dividend one place value. So it's 8 dividing 6 and 4 tenths now. Okay. Don't worry about the zeros that are a place value for like the ones place. Just ignore those. That's why I put an X over them. So if you don't remember us working through problems like that before and kind of like ignoring them, there you go. You don't need to really worry about them because 0 dividing 0 is nothing. So we're just thinking of this number as a whole number. Now we divide, and when we're done dividing, we still have a decimal in the dividend, 6 and 4 tenths. That might happen. Remember, I told you that. So now if you look, we consider the decimal, and this answer would be 10 times smaller since it's only one place value, the 4 tenths now. The decimal or the number has shifted, and so the decimal is to the right of the 6. And so we have one digit in a decimal place value. So we shift our answer to be one place value smaller, 10 times smaller. All right. We're not dividing by 64 actually, or dividing up 64. We're dividing up 6 and 4 tenths. That's 10 times smaller than 64. All right. So I will try to provide some more practice in the future. I hope this one has helped for now. You could watch it again if you'd like to help you with your understanding. Until next time, kids. Ciao.